With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
The 2021 MLB season is here, and although the seats may not be full, your bankroll has the chance to be. Greg Hoops Peterson has you covered for every game, every day this season, along with comprehensive analysis and angles for getting to the window while celebrating the walk-off winners and blown saves of what will be a wild season. Now it is time for the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson.
A warm and friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. We've got a great podcast for you. Sharky Water Nation is going to be joining me in the second segment. We are going to have games back today as we were supposed to yesterday, but the one game we were supposed to have with the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees, well, we ran into COVID issues on that game, so we're going to be talking to Sharky Water Nation about the first actual day back since the All-Star break, look at some of the angles that he's got for Friday's game, some of the things that he's looking at moving forward with regards to some of the division races that might be heating up as well, so we're going to have that chat in the second segment. Then in the final segment, going to give you guys a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Friday, and a little something I like to call it touch 'em all. I will caution you guys right now, this is probably the murkiest board I've seen all year long when it comes to starting pitchers, so if I wind up having a lot of changes in the AM, if there winds up being a lot of check back in the morning of my Twitter feed set on this podcast, that is why, because a lot of teams coming out of the All-Star break, they wind up setting their rotations like the day of their first game / the very, very late night of, and I always have to have this posted by midnight Pacific, so that will explain that. So just want to give that disclaimer right now, and I always want to invite you guys, if you have questions, comments, segment ideas, what have you, to fire those in one of two ways if you have them. First one is my Twitter timeline at JarenScorty1. Keep in mind the letters EM, they mean does not matter, so always send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated, and then from there, you're able to send your questions, comments, segment ideas, what have you, into there. This was supposed to be the time of the podcast I was going to recap Yankees versus Red Sox on Thursday, but as I told you guys, unfortunately that game got COVIDed out, so we will not be having that. But with that said, we do have a programming update as well. If you're looking for a little bit more of me, myself and Jeff Parles are going to be on the Vegas Stats and Information Network from 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific time. If you're looking Eastern time, that is 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. We're going to be talking a little baseball. We're going to be talking about the upcoming foosball season, both college and the NFL. We're going to be looking at the NBA Finals, so gonna have a whole bundle of fun there. And speaking of a whole bundle of fun, that's what we get when Sharky Water Nation joins this podcast. We're going to be talking with them about the second half of the MLB season, and we are also going to be chatting about some of Friday's games, and that is on the other side right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
Greg is calling in a pinch hitter from the Overtime Network hotline.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. It is great to be joined by our next guest as we've got Sharky Water Nation back on the podcast. He does an absolutely terrific job picking a little bit of everything. He does a great job day in and day out when it comes to baseball. I know that he's been locked in on the NBA Finals. He's getting set for an absolutely tremendous run when it comes to the NFL and college football as well. And to be able to follow Sharky Waters Nation on Twitter, you're able to follow him on Twitter at Sharks and Sports. That is the letter N in between Sharks and the word sports. And Sharky Waters Nation, great to have you back on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Unfortunately, the Yankee game is rained out. Actually, no, it's not rained out. Jokes aside, unfortunately, the COVID ambiguity. But you know what? There's no ambiguity in the broadcast we're about to drop. We're going to preview the second half. A lot of movement, a lot of games on the July 16th card. I've gone through it in detail. And Greg, I'll throw it right back to you. Where should we begin here?
I think we should begin by addressing the fact that we've got a lot of games in which we just don't know who the starting pitchers are going to be. This is fairly typical when you wind up having the All-Star game. Teams are trying to reset their rotation for the back half of the season, try to put their guys in best positions humanly possible because you've got some guys that are better on the road, some guys that are better at home. And how do you wind up gauging days like this where you have a lot of games in which they're just not up on the board the night of because you just don't know who the starting pitcher is going to be on the other side?
Yeah, no, it makes it certainly difficult to get ahead of the market in any particular way. I mean, obviously, the most standout point would be to wait and research. And then you ask yourself, how much information can we really take from potentially AAA, AA, or a bullpen turn starter environment that we just really truly don't know enough about the starter. And of course, you look at the Mets games, you look at the Twins, there's a couple of double headers on the board, Brewers with an undecided pitcher as well. And I think as a loose point, if you're trying to put the bet in the night before, you can look at the team records, do the home away splits and the run differentials and some previous matchup evaluation in this campaign, particularly between divisional opponents. Of course, they do play 19 times, so you do have some games to fall back on. But as a very, very general comment, it does make it difficult.
I agree with you. What else I think is very difficult is that when you take a look at this Yankees versus Red Sox game, for one, because the Yankees wound up having COVID issues on Thursday, we just don't know at this point as we're recording who wound up having the COVID issues. If it wound up being just like a team manager or something like that, or if it wound up being star player X, Y, or Z. And that makes handicapping the Yankees versus Red Sox game at this point just a big, giant calamity. Now, we had a lot of practice with this very unfortunately last year, so this isn't as new to us as we would like it to be. But with that said, it still makes things very strange, especially if you're looking to bet on the Yankees, say not even just this weekend, but next week moving forward, if you still wind up having a couple guys out of the fold due to COVID restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the most recent report. The three that have tested positive are pitchers. Cortez, kind of the faux ace, if you will, a little bit of a joke yet again. But Jonathan Loaisaga, a flex closer, obviously eighth inning guy who's showing a massive upside, and Wandy Peralta, recent acquisition from the San Francisco Giants. But there are three up in the air, as you said, and we don't know if those are going to be the all-stars, I think, which was unfortunately what the report was coming out. Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, to name a couple absolute ringer players for the Yankees. Then you look at this game tomorrow night, 7:05 p.m. at the stadium, and you just ask yourself, how am I going to cap this game with integral players out? It makes it incredibly difficult. And, fortunately, obviously, when we look at the MLB board, there's a huge slate. So it does have a little more accessibility as you go down the card. There are some games which I do think will have more transparency.
Yeah, and as I'm seeing it right now, literally reported 5 minutes before we came on by the New York Post, it looks like Aaron Judge might be in COVID-19 protocol as well. So that really throws a monkey wrench into things as well. But when you take a look at some of the other games, it looks like we've got a little bit more clarity when it comes to it. Right now, I'm seeing Adam Wainwright going for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then on the flip side, Kevin Gausman in a game that I think should be very fascinating because the St. Louis Cardinals, they are always like a roach. They never, ever truly die. And with the San Francisco Giants, they've been the surprise team of baseball so far. 57-32, best record in the big leagues. Kevin Gausman is going to be going for them, and Kevin Gausman on the road has a 1.25 ERA. I take a look at this game and any total north of 7 because right now as we're doing it, this is a game that is presently off the board. I'd probably be taking a look at the under because Adam Wainwright does his best work at home. The San Francisco Giants have been very solid at hitting homers, but no doubt this is a team that I do expect their offense to cool down a little bit, and I think that Kevin Gausman is here to stay as an ace pitcher.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, obviously Gausman had been around for a few years, and he's really percolating and peaking this campaign. One just general remark on that. I do think he showed a couple signs towards the end of the first half of being slightly more normalizing to his long-term average. But I do think he is here to stay as an absolute top-level pitcher. Of course, we don't have the lines out right now, so it is a little bit difficult to evaluate. If we were throwing out a line here, I usually do look at team expectancies per their actual runs scored per game, and I do look at the ERA and WHIP of the pitchers. ERA is very blanketly linear here. We're looking at roughly 6 as a combined. So as you said, if this line's hovering at 7.5, I do have a little bit of a suspect in my mind that this line could come up a little bit. I do think there's a general idea that both these pitchers might get less efficient as time goes on this year. I could see this line coming in around 8, just as a general point there, Greg.
I think that this is going to be a game in which it's going to be relatively low scoring. We saw the St. Louis Cardinals terrible on offense, to say the least, going into the All-Star break. So it's going to be fascinating to see if they're going to be able to turn it around. And then the Seattle Mariners are a team that I think is really interesting as well. 48-43 with a negative 50 run differential. I don't remember ever seeing a team 5 games above 500 with a negative 50 run differential. They're on the road facing off against the LA Angels, as I'm seeing it right now. The Mariners right around a plus 140-ish underdog. You might be able to find a little bit more. You might be able to find a little bit less. Andrew Heaney is going to be going for the LA Angels, and I think that the Angels should be a little bit of a favorite, and no question, Chris Flexen has been significantly worse on the road than at home, and I do think regression is coming in for the Seattle Mariners. I just don't know if regression is going to be coming in to the tune of making them north of a plus 140 underdog like we're seeing right now, because Andrew Heaney doesn't necessarily impress me. That LA Angels bullpen doesn't impress me. Offense has been good, but I could see a scenario in which both of these teams get north of 5 runs, and it just winds up turning into a little bit of a coin toss and a slugfest.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously you noted the home to away gaps for both pitchers, which are fairly noteworthy here. And the unfortunate thing about trying to buy the Angels in this scenario is they are also overrated in their straight up win-loss versus their run differential. They are minus 26 on the campaign at a plus 1. 45-44 win-loss. And I would talk about this in all sports. Sometimes it's just very hard to buy one side when both teams should get worse, theoretically. When you look at this run differential, both teams should be under 500 and both are over 500. Very similar, just overall first half to the campaign. I do think when you look at the lines here, LA Angels here hovering around 150, 155. I've been tracking this the entire season. Of course, Mike Trout out, Anthony Rendon not having a great season. Ohtani, obviously the class of all classes in the world, but he can't carry an entire team by himself, particularly when he's not pitching. And I think that they haven't really adjusted these numbers as much as they might do oftentimes in other sports, where they're kind of throwing out long-term expected averages as if they were capping this back in May between the Angels and the Mariners with full rosters and more of a normalized setting here. I won't really have an official plan in this game as of now, but I do think, of course, the line hovering up at that 155 probability point, given the actual records, would suggest the Angels should get better and the Mariners would get worse.
And I love the fact that you bring up the fact that bookmakers are sometimes slow to adjust on some of these teams, as we do have Sharky Water Nation joining me on the podcast, and I've noticed that a lot with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Right now, it's a to-be-determined starter for them, but really, when you take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, other than Merrill Kelly, nobody's been able to have success for this team all year long. Meanwhile, they're going to be facing off against Kyle Hendricks, who throughout his career has always been worse away from Wrigley Field, but this year's home and road splits aren't necessarily too demonstrative. 11-4 record, that's the most wins out there in the National League. With the Arizona Diamondbacks, I still recall their series when they were at home against the San Francisco Giants about 2 weeks ago, and you were often finding them right around plus 130, plus 135 as an underdog. And if you're giving me similar prices in the series against the Chicago Cubs, I recognize that they wound up looking terrible going into the All-Star break, but I'm going to be hammering the Cubs after the Arizona Diamondbacks closed out the first half of the season 11-53. And I know that there are some places that they put up adjusted season win totals. I wound up seeing one book hang up 59.5 for the year for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know where they're getting 34 wins from.
Yeah, I mean, that is an absolutely insane statistical point as a point of movement. I do think, obviously, the Diamondbacks were not supposed to be nearly that bad coming into the season. And we talked about this when we were chatting a couple of weeks ago, where you don't really see quote unquote tanking in baseball like other sports, because, of course, the MLB draft is a lot deeper and definitely not as top heavy as, say, the NBA draft, where there's large scale incentive to really have the worst record in baseball. But having watched this team on the late night broadcast here at my house night after night, I just found it uncanny how they just have this unbelievable ability to give away a game. If they need to give up 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th, here's your 5 runs. It has been unbelievable to watch. And I do agree with you. Buying the Cubs here has significant merit. The Cubs are a much better team than they showcased in the last 20 games of the first half. Obviously, a putrid 11-game losing streak, 2-8 last 10. Come in here just really below their average. So I wouldn't disagree with you that looking at the Cubs here tomorrow with Hendricks, who, as you mentioned, has pitched much better on the road this year than in previous campaigns.
Yeah, I do think that this is going to be a spot in which it's just going to be continued to fade the Arizona Diamondbacks until they present some value. Once you wind up getting the Arizona Diamondbacks north of $2, maybe they're worth a shot, but when you've got a team that's 11-53 in their last 64 games and they're like a plus 135 underdog against a team with the best record in baseball, there's just no taking that, as we do have our good buddy Sharky Water Nation joining me on the podcast. And well, it is a little bit of a tough situation, as I mentioned a little bit earlier with this Friday card, just because we do have a lot of games that are presently off the board. But just taking a look at the second half of the season in general, is there anything that you're going to be looking for when it comes to perhaps some totals? Because I know that a lot of people were using the sticky stuff being outlawed as a little bit of an angle. I personally have not. I look at more humidity, just places of the country that are heating up more or less for runs to be able to be scored. I know that a lot of people, including myself, are going to be fading some of these bad teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, Baltimore Orioles. Insert your poopy team here. But is there anything that you're really going to be looking at second half of the season that you think might be worth betting on / fading?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I really do look at, and I look at it in other sports as well, I always look at point differential. I think it tells you a damn good story outside of just the straight up win and loss results. And there's a few teams here which I think are going to have significant buy merit the entire second half of the season. One of them is the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays are 45-42 on the campaign with a plus 72 differential. They've scored 444 runs, and they've only given up 372, which is actually slightly above league average. And there's 2 divisions which really stand out for me in terms of where you might see some significant movement. And let me just talk about the other divisions for maybe 10 seconds. When you really look at like divisions such as the AL Central, the White Sox are the class, and then you have 4 very pedestrian teams. In the West, you have the Astros, and then you have the A's kind of hovering, and you have a bunch of pedestrian teams. But you go to the AL East and you go to the NL East, and you find significant competitive parity. Now, the Red Sox, Rays, Blue Jays, and Yankees all really with potentially playoff style rosters and expectations. And then you go to the NL East and you find a run differential dispersion within the division, which is all over the grid. You have the New York Mets at a +9 leading the division with a 47-40 record. And comically, you go to the basement of this division at 39-50. We talked about this before, Greg. The Miami Marlins are 11 games under 500 at a +17, which is the second best run differential in the division. And of course, you have the Braves middling the division at 44-40, 5-1 under at a +19. Obviously, the Braves have had some significant injuries, some issues up and down the lineups. I think a little bit of emotional chemistry, hard to motivate, a bunch of things with a young roster. But when you really look at this, I really like buying Atlanta the entire second half, Miami the entire second half, and Toronto the entire second half. And of course, not just plugging my team, the New York Yankees, but I do think the Yankees also, more or less in a do or die environment, really will show some signs here in the second half. Greg?
I do think that the Yankees are better than what they've showed. I think that this is going to be above 500 team. I don't think that the Yankees are going to be making the playoffs personally, but I think that there's going to be a little bit of improvement there. With the Giants, I think that they're going to be interesting as well because they currently have the best record in baseball. Do I expect a little bit of regression there? Yes, but at the same time, I certainly do think that they are still being disrespected by bookmakers a little bit there. So I think that it's a little bit of a 50-50 approach. Well, you wound up projecting coming into the year, you shouldn't completely abandon it. But at the same time, you do need to be a little bit more progressive because I've noticed that bookmakers have been just still hanging some ridiculous lines on the Minnesota Twins. And I think that we just need to buy into the fact that they don't have good starting pitching. Their bullpen is not necessarily great. Their offense is still there. The offense is just fine with the Minnesota Twins, but I've got to be downgrading more than the books have been, because if you've been fading the Twins all year long, you've made a lot of money, and I don't see how that changes unless if the prices wind up getting moved.
Yeah, I agree. And the comment about their pitching is really the standout point. Giving up the second most runs in the entire American League with only the absolute bottom feeder Baltimore Orioles behind them. And you look at it, and I've been talking about it as well on Twitter all season. This team has been so far beneath their team totals future as set by Vegas going back to January, February. But then you have to ask yourself the question, are they just purely not the team that was graded in January and February? And I think what you said about the NL West is absolutely a fascinating one. When you have three teams of this quality and this class in one division, I mean, this is historical almost with these run differentials and these records. I'm, for one, looking forward to watching the NL West play out. And I do think, just a large-scale comment on that, I think you're going to see some significant movement here from the Padres and the Dodgers, and they might overtake the Giants here.
And I could certainly see a scenario in which we wind up getting three teams into the postseason from the NL West. That very well could be the case. It's going to be really interesting with all those three teams as well, because I think that all three might wind up finishing the year with 95-plus wins, but none of these teams wind up finishing with more than 100 either. So I think that it might be very closely knit at the top of the NL West. And a man that is closely knit with great content and being able to put out great work, that'd be you, Sharky Water Nation. I know that you do some great videos out there on social media, Twitter, along with YouTube as well. I know that you're getting things gassed up when it comes to the NFL season, the college football season. You do a great job day in and day out when it comes to baseball as well. So let the good people at home know how they're able to get all of your work and just what you've all got in the hopper right now in general.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say the summer is a bit of a break, obviously. We don't take baseball lightly, but usually at this point in the year, this is the bottom area of the sports campaign in the United States and the world. Going into the fall, we are going to light it on fire. We got NFL shows on YouTube, and follow me on Twitter for NFL picks, college football picks, NBA commentary, and shows coming into the fall post October 19th. And as I always say, 9 words of lifestyle: ride the wave or get out of the water. Thanks for having me, Greg. A pleasure as always.
It is always a pleasure to get Sharky Water Nation on the podcast. He brings great energy, brings great insight. Did so once again today on this podcast. So big thanks to him for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast. And coming up next, though the betting board might be a little bit more murky than normal for this Friday, I'm going to give you guys a side total and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Friday in a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Great to be joined by Sharky Waters Nation in the last segment. Be able to take a look at some of these games, as right now as I do this, over half the games on the betting board currently do not have numbers, so it's a little bit of a murky one, but we were able to get some great information there with our good buddy Sharky Waters Nation. So big thanks to him. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Friday, and a little something I'd like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
As per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at JaronSquarty1, and we are probably going to be having quite a few of them, as I am taking a look at it right now. We've got 17 games that are on the betting board for today, and 5 have numbers, so that makes things a little bit difficult on us. This is just one of the pains of post-All-Star break. I guess you could call it getting back into the swing of things, as a lot of teams are trying to set their rotations, put themselves in position to be able to make that postseason run. So as a result, right now, we've got a lot of to-be-determinists, but I'm going to do my best with all of these. And we've got a pair of doubleheaders, and I'm just going to lump them all together. And the first one is, ironically enough, involving the first game on the betting board as we go in rotation order. 901, 902 is going to be paired up with 909, 910. Miami Marlins hit the road to face off against the Philadelphia Phillies. In Game 1, it looks like it's going to be Sandy Alcantara going for the Miami Marlins, and Matt Gibby some more for the Philadelphia Phillies. In Game 2, Zach Eflin hopes to not be Eflin awful for the Phillies against to be determined of the Miami Marlins. In Game 2, I've got to think that the Marlins are probably going to be trotting out there one of the younger starters. Maybe that winds up being a Cody Poteet. Maybe that winds up being a Zach Thompson. I think that one of these guys would wind up getting the start. And in that spot, I'd probably be setting the Phillies as about a minus 140-ish favorite, give or take a little bit. Might be a little bit more, depending on the bullpen situation of the Miami Marlins. Because when you take a look at Zach Eflin, he's 4-6 this year, but you take a look at what he's been able to do at home. At home, a 2.25 ERA across 7 starts, has given up 4 home runs in 44 innings, 5 walks in 44 innings as well. So he has been absolutely tremendous with that regard. And then on the road, he's got an ERA of a 5.12, giving up 10 home runs in 58 innings. So he's been vastly different there. And then with the Miami Marlins, this is a bullpen that has been able to perform very well all year long. Anthony Bender has an ERA that is sub-2. You've been able to get quite a bit out of the former Dodgers. Emi Garcia, Dylan Floro. These guys have been very good. Zach Pop, not necessarily been too terrific, but then you take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies. Bullpen is still a massive issue for this team. Archie Bradley has been able to give you a couple innings, and J.D. Hammer. It is Hammer time because he is back up there at the major league level. They're kicking the tires on him. You've got Brandon Kitzler back in the fold. He has not been too great. Mauricio Rivera is the guy that they're going to be hoping for innings from as well, along with someone like a Christopher Sanchez. So that's not necessarily too terrific. And when you take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies, I do think that there might be a little bit of an upside for this offense in the back half of the season, because when you take a look at Bryce Harper, he was able to do a solid job being able to pound out 15 homers in the first half of the season, and all but one of them were solo homers. So you've got to figure that more guys are going to be able to get on base, because you've got a guy like an Andrew McCutchen with a 350 on base. He's only hitting a 230, but he himself has been able to give you 15 homers. Rhys Hoskins went deep 20 times first half of the season. This is a Phillies team that in general has been much better at home than they have been on the road. As you take a look at the Phillies, 24-16 at home, 20-28 on the road. So that is something interesting. And they're going up against a Miami Marlins team that is actually second in terms of run differential out there in the big leagues. They've got quite a few guys that are able to drive them in. Adam Duvall along with Jesus Aguilar, both above 50 RBI in the first half of the season. Jazz Chisholm has been able to hit about a 260 for the team. Jesus Sanchez, Miguel Rojas in between a 255 and a 265 as well. You need a little bit more out of guys like Mangolia Sierra, Joe Panic, but you do have guys that are able to do a relatively solid job. And Garrett Cooper now hitting right around a 290 for this team with a 390 on base. He's a guy that's able to go yard as well. So I do think that there's upside for a Miami Marlins team that has been relatively solid when it comes to run differential, just have not been able to pull out those close games. When I take a look at this Alcantara versus Matt Moore matchup, I'm going to be making the Miami Marlins a very slight favorite, because I do think that Alcantara, even though the record is 5-8, he's just better in general than Matt Moore. He's given up right around 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 is a little bit below 3. You take a look at him on the road, 3.33 ERA, very respectable. It's not like he's got some demonstrative home and road splits on the road so far this year. He's given up 4 home runs in 54 innings. And then you take a look at Matt Moore, he's got a home ERA of 9. That is not great. He has given up 1 home run every 3 innings that he's pitched at home. Now, it's a small sample size of 9 innings, so keep that into account. Overall, he's got a 5.40 ERA, but I'm just not impressed with Matt Moore. I don't understand why they would be even contemplating making him a favorite in this spot with the Miami Marlins. I do think that they are going to be able to get some good performance there. And when I take a look at this overall, like I said, Zach Eflin, probably a guy that I'm going to be making a sizable favorite in Game 2. In Game 1, in which we do know the pitchers, Alcantara versus Matt Moore, made the Marlins a minus 116 favorite, set the total at 6.3, which means that a 6 or lower would be taking a look at the over, 6.5 or higher would be taking a look at the under. I would think I'd probably be setting something similar for someone like a Zach Thomas versus a Zach Eflin matchup, but check back in the morning my Twitter feed at JaronSquarty1 since we've got a little bit of mystery there. 903, 904 on the betting board. Now we start with a lot more off the board. I guess you could call it a parade when it comes to these games that are off the board, as you've got the Mets hitting the road to face off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. One Marcus Stroman is going to be going for the Metropolitans. To be determined is going to be going for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Here's something you can bank on. The Pittsburgh Pirates being an underdog in this game now. They did actually wind up having 2 all-star starters for the National League, Adam Frazier, Brian Reynolds. A pair of guys have been very solid. A pair of guys north of a 385 on base. Reynolds leading the team with 16 homers, and I believe that he is the only guy with a double-digit amount of home runs so far this year. As you take a look at the rest of the team, they just have been unable to get on base in general. You take a look at Wilmer Defoe, whenever he's been able to get at bats, he's been solid with a 270 batting average. Brian Hayes, right around 260 batting average, 350 on base, but then you've got a bunch of guys that they are hitting a 230 or lower. Jacob Stallings, Kevin Newman, Phillip Evans, Gregory Polanco. you're able to throw in there Kai Tom. You've got a little bit of a newer gentleman in Jared Oliveira, who's been getting some reps out there in the outfield. These guys have been terrible, and for the Mets, they've been one of the worst offenses out there in the big leagues as well. But taking a look at their series against the Pittsburgh Pirates, they were able to break the 4-run plateau in 3 out of those 4 games, so they were able to get a little bit of something generated there, and this is a team that all of a sudden, they're getting a little bit more healthy. J.D. Davis probably not going to be available quite in this series, but he is very close to returning. James McCann has been able to hit in the pocket of about a 250 after a rough start to the year. Luis Guillorme is back for the team. Francisco Lindor was terrible in the first half of the year, hitting right around at 230, was able to give the team 11 homers, and he looked like he was starting to find himself going into the All-Star break, but now you've got Jeff McNeil back in the fold. You've got Michael Conforto back. Neither of these guys have necessarily put up big numbers, but you got to anticipate a good second half of the season. Brandon Nimmo is a guy that's able to get on base for this team, and I do think that you're going to be able to get Pete Alonso to have a good second half. Wound up having 17 homers in the first half. We saw what he was able to do in the home run derby, and then you take a look at both of these bullpens, and they're relatively soft. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, Jason Shreve has been good. Kyle Crick had a little bit of a rough go of it last few weeks going into the All-Star break, but Richard Rodriguez has been able to give you a tad bit of something. Chris Stratton as well. It's all going to depend on the Pirates starter as to what we're going to be getting for our price, because with Marcus Stroman, you know what you're going to be able to get out of him. 2.75 ERA overall. Home and road splits are really not demonstrative. He has given up 7 home runs in 53 and 2/3 innings on the road, but opponents are hitting a 224 off of him. Not the world's greatest swing and miss guy, but a guy that does a good job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. Gives up right around 2.3 walks per 9 innings. This is a spot in which I'm probably going to be setting a total that is between 7.5 and 8, depending on your starter with the Pirates. I would anticipate Marcus Stroman, if he goes up against someone like a Tyler Anderson, for instance, being right around a minus 160-ish favorite. But once again, drag back in the morning, my Twitter feed at JarenScorty1, as we just don't have any idea who the Pirates are going to be sending out there as a starter. 9-5, 9-6 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals are going to be playing OC San Diego Padres. Chris Paddock is going to be going for the Pods. Eric Fetty-Wap is going to be going on the bump for the Washington Nationals. Nationals decided very late on Fetty in this spot, so we currently have no numbers up on this game, but I've got numbers for you. I made the Padres minus 163 favorite, plus 112 on the Lang 1.5 run line. Also wound up setting the total at 7.9. So 7.5 or lower, going to be taking a look at the over. 8 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under. With Paddock, it's very strange in that he's actually been pitching a little bit better on the road than he has been at home, which is not what you typically expect, because Paddock is a guy that is playing out there in San Diego, so you'd expect that to be a little bit more pitcher-friendly for him. He has given up 12 home runs in 77 innings so far this year, and it just feels like you either get really good Chris Paddock or you wind up getting really bad Chris Paddock. He has given up 3 runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 6 starts, but one of the starts was against these very Washington Nationals. Gave up 9 runs, 8 of which were earned over the course of 2 innings. You just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of him night in and night out. And for the Washington Nationals, they've been dealing with Kyle Schwarber being on the injured list, and that has hurt them because he wound up having 18 home runs in the month of June. Was absolutely amazing for the team. And with the Washington Nationals, they're one of the best teams at being able to get on base. You've got Sterling Castro, Juan Soto, Josh Harrison, all in between a 271 and a 283. For Soto, north of a 400 on base. Trey Turner down for what? 19 stolen bases, 320 batting average, 17 home runs. That has been terrific. But really, outside of Schwarber, you've been able to get a couple home runs out of Josh Bell. He's been able to give the team 12 of them. You haven't necessarily been able to get that production out of some of these other guys. Victor Robles hitting a 209. The 322 on base is nice, but he hasn't been able to do a good job of being able to drive them in with the Washington Nationals. The bullpen is a little bit improved. I do like the fact that you've got Brad Hand out there in the pen for the team. Andres Machado, I think, is going to be an interesting prospect for them. Sam Clay has been a little bit up and down as he's got an ERA that's hovering right around 5, so been a little bit of a rough go of it for him there. And for the Padres, what I do like about them is that even though they are trotting out their Paddock, they've got the number 1 bullpen when it comes to ERA. Emilio Pagan, Craig Stammen, these guys have been solid for the team. Nisbel Cruzmat is able to give you multiple innings along with Miguel Diaz. Pierce Johnson has been reliable. Mark Melanson right now leading the league in saves, which is why I did wind up saying the Padres has more around a minus 163 favorite. I do think that they should be relatively sizable against a guy in Eric Fetty who you just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of Eric Fetty on a night in and night out basis as well. Overall for the year, 4.59 ERA. You take a look at his last 3 starts, though. He has given up at least 3 runs in every one of them and given up 5+ in 2 of them. Not a guy that is going to get a whole bunch of swings and misses. So far this year, he's averaging right around 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's given up in the pocket of about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Walks per 9 is hovering right around 4 as well. So he's got his issues there. Has been a tad bit better at home than he has been on the road, but it's not necessarily too much of an upgrade. And at home, he's given up right around 4.5 walks per 9 innings. So this is a spot where I'm going to be saying the Padres as a minus 163 favorite, and anything that is a 7.5 or lower, going to be taking on the over. 8 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under. 907, 908 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers hit the road to face off against the Cincinnati Reds. We are on to Cincinnati, and Tyler Mahle is going to be going for them. For the Brewers, we've got good old to be determined for them. So this is a game that is presently off the board. And this all depends on whether or not Brandon Woodruff starts this game for the Milwaukee Brewers. Because if Brandon Woodruff is starting for the Brewers, they should be a sizable favorite, and rightfully so. You want him skipping the All-Star game. I believe that his last start was on Sunday, so he actually would be able to make this start. 7-4 record, 2.06 ERA. In his last start against the Reds, that was on Sunday, he gave up 1 run, and overall, he's given up more than 2 runs 3 times so far this year. So he has been absolutely amazing. 129 strikeouts and 113 in the third innings. He's given up right around 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. He has been great, and he's backed up by a bullpen loaded with Devin Williams and Josh Hader. In my opinion, the best 8th and 9th inning duo in baseball. Hunter Strickland has been good for the team. Brad Boxberger has given you some good innings with the Reds. Your big bugaboo with this team is the bullpen, though. It does seem like it's improving. Josh Osich has actually been able to be very good for the team. A sub-1 ERA. Brad Brock has been able to give you some good innings. Heath Embry seems to be picking it up as well. And then you take a look at Tyler Mahle. 7-3 record, 3.68 ERA, but he's actually been significantly worse at home than he's been on the road. On the road at 2.26 ERA, 5-1 record. At home, the ERA balloons to 6, and he has given up 9 home runs over the course of 35 and 2/3 innings. Meanwhile, he's given up 3 in 59 and 2/3 innings on the road. Opponents are getting a $1.89 off of him on the road, 2.68 whenever he's in Cincinnati, so that is a little bit of an issue. Now, the good news with Cincinnati is that they're able to get into a slugfest. They are one of the top 3 teams when it comes to runs per game at home so far this year. Nick Castellanos along Jesse Winker. Both of these guys hitting above a 300. Both of these guys north of a 380 on base. Both of these guys between 18 and 19 home runs. Eugenio Suarez has been able to give you 18 bombs as well. Taylor Naquin has thrown in their 13 homers. Joey Votto has went deep 11 times despite being on the injured list. If you take a look at him, he's giving you a home run every about 19 to 20-ish at bats. He's up to a 350 on base. Tucker Barnard, a 350 on base. You've got Stevenson at the catcher spot, 380 on base. This is a team that they do an amazing job at home. And when you take a look at the Milwaukee Brewers, this is still one of the worst teams when it comes to batting average in baseball, but Willie Adames has been able to shore things up for this team. Ever since he came over to the Milwaukee Brewers, he's been able to supply them with 9 homers. He's hitting a 291 as a Milwaukee Brewer, which is absolutely massive because you take a look at a lot of these guys and they just haven't been able to pick it up in general. You've got quite a few guys hitting in that pocket of a sub-200 Manny Pina. Jackie Bradley Jr. has been very good with the glove, but doing nothing with the bat. Keston Hip-Hip-Hurrah, who's been more like Keston Hip-Hip-Boo so far this year. Rowdy Tellez, who they just wound up picking up, so it's a small sample size there. Have not necessarily been able to get the job done. Luis Urias is someone that has been able to give the team 12 homers. He has been solid, being able to get on base with right around a 330 on base, and the Christian Yelich on base of a 400 is nice, but 5 homers and 187 at-bats, you expect more there. Colton Wong being on the injured list has really hampered this Brewers offense as well, so if it winds up being Brandon Woodruff, Brewers are going to be a sizable favorite, and you're probably looking at a total of something like 7.5. If it winds up being someone like Adrian Hauser, you probably set this total at 9, maybe even 9.5, and you set the Reds as a big favorite. So jump back in the morning on this one. It all depends on whether or not Brandon Woodruff pitches for the Brewers. I'm going to make it that simple. 9:09, 9:10 was game 2 of that double dip between the Marlins and the Phillies. So we move on to my New York Post play of the day. 9:11, 9:12 on the main board. The San Francisco Yankees are going to be in the road to face off against the St. Louis Cardinals. For the Cardinals, it is going to be Adam Wainwright. Meanwhile, Kevin Gausman is going to be on the bump for the Giants. Currently, bookmakers have not put up a number on this game, but I can tell you right now, I've got a sub-7 total on this game, and I'm going to be taking an under. I highly doubt that we're going to be getting a sub-7 total that is going to be released by the books. I just take a look at Kevin Gausman, and he has been absolutely amazing for the San Francisco Giants. He has given up more than 2 runs in 1 road start so far this year. 5-2 record in 11 road starts, .35 ERA, given up 4 home runs in 66 and 2/3 innings. Overall for the year, opponents are getting a .59 off of him. He has been amazing, and he's backed up by a bullpen that has been in the top 6 for much of the year for the San Francisco Giants in terms of ERA. Zach Liddell is someone that's been able to get the job done. Taylor Rogers, John Breba is someone that I think is going to be able to give the team good innings. Caleb Barger, now off the injured list. 0.49 ERA for him. Now, with the Giants, Buster Posey is still on the injured list, so that is going to help out Adam Wainwright a little bit, and Adam Wainwright has been amazing at home. On the road, he hasn't necessarily been himself. at home so far this year. Only a 4-3 record to show for it, but a 2.55 ERA. Opponents are hitting a 2.05 off of him. He's given up less than a home run per 9 innings on the road. He's given up 7 homers in 38 and 2/3 innings. So big discrepancy there. When it comes to St. Louis Cardinals, bullpen is not necessarily terrific, but you do have a couple guys here you're able to rely upon. Genesis Cabrera, Giovanni Gallegos, sub-3 ERAs there. You have an all-star in Alex Reyes, who has been terrific for the team. And Brandon Waddle, able to give you a couple good innings as well. And then you take a look at the San Francisco Giants. You've got a bunch of guys that they've got on-base percentages that are about 100 points higher than their batting average. Mike Yastrzemski, a prime example of this, 234 batting average, 334 on base. He's been able to give the team 12 homers, so he has been relatively solid for the team. Donovan Solano, right around 260 batting average. Wilmer Flores, a 255. Austin Slater has right around 222 batting average, along with Adam Dickerson as well. Both of these guys have right around a 300 on base, so I think that that's something that you want to be taking a look at. Brandon Belt being injured has hurt the Giants, but they still have been able to persevere. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, this is just an offense that has not been good, to say the least. I believe that they have wound up playing something like 20 out of their last 30 games to the under. This is a bunch in which they're just not able to get out of their own way. 8 out of their last 10 games at home have wound up hitting to the under, and you just take a look at this lineup in general. You've got a lot of guys varying between, I would say, about a 250 to a 265. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman, Dylan Carlson, Yadier Molina, Umando Sosa, all in that fold. Now, you have been able to get right around a 345 on base from Dylan Carlson, and you've been able to get Nolan Arenado going for 17 homers, but you just expect a little bit more out of Paul Goldschmidt. Matt Carpenter hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 is not good. Paul DeJong has not necessarily been able to get on base as well, so I do take a look at the spot. I wound up setting the Giants as a minus 153 favorite because I do think that Kevin Gausman, once again, going to keep this freight train rolling of the San Francisco Giants. I think that they are here to stay, and I wound up setting the total at 6.9. So New York Post play today is going to be the under. Likely going to be looking at the Giants unless we wind up getting a number that I am just not expecting. 9-13, 9-14 on the betting board. We've actually got numbers on this game, ladies and gentlemen, as you've got the LA Dodgers and the road to face off against the Colorado Rockies. One Antonio Senzatella is going to be going for the Rockies. Julio Arias is going to be on the bump for the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are finding themselves as big favorites here, anywhere between minus $2 and minus 210. If you're taking a look at the Rockies, anywhere between plus 180 and plus 185. 11 to 10.5 is your total. On the 11, unders anywhere between minus 110, minus 120. Overs anywhere between even and minus 110. If you're looking at the 10.5, overs minus 120, the under is even. And this is a situation in which I did wind up saying the Dodgers more around about a minus 190-ish favorite, but if you're looking at the run line, you're finding that with the Dodgers anywhere between a minus 130 and a minus 135, and that's where I'm going to be looking because I wound up saying the Dodgers run line at a minus 137. Also wound up saying the total at 11.2, so we're going to be taking a look at the over because with the Colorado Rockies, they've got the league's best batting average when they're at home. They've got the league's worst batting average when they're on the road. You've got to be looking at the Colorado Rockies so vastly differently when they are at home versus when they are on the road because this team has extreme splits. When you take a look at Antonio Senzatella, he on the road has been just a complete nightmare. 0-5 record, 6.03 ERA. In 7 starts, 34 and a third innings, he's given up 5 homers and 10 walks. In 60 innings at home across 10 starts, he's given up 4 homers and 11 walks in 60 innings. And opponents are hitting a 267 off of him at Coors, which is not great, but a 333 on the road. So big splits there. Meanwhile, Julio Arias has been able to do a very solid job so far this year. He's given up right around 1.3 homers per 9 innings, but about 2 walks per 9 innings, strikeouts per 9. That's hovering right around 10, and he's been able to do some of his best work on the road. 3.15 ERA with an 8-2 record, and his 10 starts on the road at home, more like a 3-1 record, and he has been giving up a little bit of hard contact on the road, but opponents are only hitting a 204 off of him. Keep in mind with Urias, in his last 14 starts, he's actually seen only 3 of them go under, so he has been very much an over pitcher. And for the Dodgers, we all know about the matchers of this team. Mookie Betts, he is going to be able to have a big second half of the year. And quite frankly, you just take a look at all the on-bases of these guys. They are all a 350 or greater. Gotta think that Corey Seager at some point is going to be coming back. He won't be available in this game, but Max Muncy, Justin Turner down for what? Chris Taylor, Betts, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, Will Smith, Matt Beattie. That is absolutely amazing. And then you got AJ Pollock hitting at 270 for this team. Kevin Lux has been a little bit up and down, but Albert Pujols in a Dodgers uniform hitting a 275. That is absolutely incredible. As just a Dodger, he's been able to hit 8 home runs at 109 at bats, so they're utilizing him well. I do think that Cody Bellinger going to have a good second half of the season. And for the Colorado Rockies, I mentioned it once again, at home. This is a team that they're vastly different than on the road. Ryan McMahon has been able to give you 16 homers overall for the year, but this is a Rockies team that they're hitting .280 at Coors, .341 on base. They've been able to pump out 59 homers in 48 games. At home, on the road, they're giving you right around .6 home runs per game. And you just take a look at the home batting averages of the Colorado Rockies. Jonathan Daza, Garrett Hampson, Remiel Tapia, Trevor Story, Josh Fuentes, all hitting above a 300 for the team. CJ Cron, Ryan McMahon, Brandon Rogers, in between a .269 and a .290. So these guys are just completely different when they're at Coors Field. And for the Colorado Rockies, bullpen has been a little bit rough. Yancy Almonte has not been good for the team. Daniel Bart has been able to give you a little bit of something, along with Justin Lawrence, who's able to throw 100 miles per hour. Michael Givens coming off the injured list is good. And for the Dodgers, this is a team that they're a little bit hampered by the fact that you've got the whole Trevor Bauer situation coming in, and you've got Darren Nunez, who is now being relied upon for innings. He's not necessarily too terrific along with Jake Reed, but I like Blake Tryon. I like what you're able to get out of Garrett Clevenger as well. He's actually been a nice addition for the team. Scott Alexander coming off the injured list is big as well. You've got David Price out there in the bullpen as well. So I do take a look at this spot, and I'm going to be taking a look at the Dodgers run line. Set this total 11.2, so we're going to be looking over as well. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting board. We have no numbers up on this one, and I guarantee you it's going to be a short one because we've got the Chicago Cubs in the road to face off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. To be determined, aka the white flag is going to be going for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Kyle Hendricks is going to be pitching for the Chicago Cubs. With Kyle Hendricks, I mentioned it a little bit earlier with Sharky Water Nation, the fact that he has always been a guy that has pitched a little bit better at Wrigley than he has on the road, but on the road this year, he's had a lower ERA than he has at home. 5-1 record, 3.62 ERA in his 8 road starts, actually giving up fewer home runs per 9 innings when he's on the road as well. 8 homers given up in 49 and 2/3 innings away from Wrigley, but at Wrigley, 12 bombs in 55 and a third innings, and yet here he is with this absolutely gaudy record. I do think that regression is going to set in. I don't think it's going to be against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who right now they've got Eduardo Escobar being able to give them 20 homers. Josh Ross has been able to hit 10 of them, but past that, you don't have anyone else on the roster with more than 8 homers. That would be Carson Kelly, and he has been banged up all year long. Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte has been injured as well. Now, Pavin Smith hitting right around a .265 for this team has been relatively solid. Christian Walker has been injured all year long. You just don't have a lot with this team. Josh Reddick is hitting at .270, but he's got one more homer than myself in 133 at bats. So that has not been great. And with the Arizona Diamondbacks, they've just been completely misusing their pitchers. You've got a bunch of guys that they have went from starter to bullpen, back to the bullpen, back to starter. You don't know what you're going to get. You could get Riley Smith as a starter. You could get Caleb Smith as a starter. Heck, at this point, you could have Joe Monapley give you a start. It doesn't matter. This is a team that they're going to lose this game with the Chicago Cubs. I do recognize that they wound up going on that double-digit losing streak in the end of June/early July, but still, you've got a bunch of guys with pride that they don't want to be sold off at the trade deadline. Chris Bryant has been able to do a solid job hitting at .270, 16 homers, and for that matter, when you take a look at the Cubs, you've got 6 different guys with at least 10 homers so far this year. Anthony Rizzo, Jack Peterson, Patrick Wisdom, Wilson Contreras, Javi Baez, Chris Bryant. So these guys have all been able to do their job. Now, they have been a little bit less effective on the road, but you know what? The fact that they're going up against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who has the league worst ERA, that is going to be able to help them out. And when you take a look at what guys have been able to do on the road for the Cubs as well, you got Patrick Wisdom with 7 homers and 56 at-bats, hitting right around a .270. So that's going to be able to help them out a little bit. Anthony Rizzo has not been able to find it on the road, but Wilson Contreras, actually with a .362 on base, I do recognize that the Cubs are a little bit banged up going into this game as well. It looks like they're going to not have David Bodie once again, but take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. With Merrill Kelly going day-to-day at this point, he is not going to be the starter in this game, so there's no way I could take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. If it were a bullpen game of the Diamondbacks versus Kyle Hendricks, I'd probably be saying the Cubs is right around a $2 favorite. I'd be looking at a total anywhere between 9.5 and 10, and this is probably going to be a run line play on the Chicago Cubs, unless if the Arizona Diamondbacks wind up bringing back like Bob Gibson or something like that. So expect Cubs run line and probably some form of an over. 9:17, 9:18 on the betting board. You've got a double dip between the Minnesota Twins and the Detroit Tigers. Jose Urena is going to be going in Game 1 for the Detroit Tigers. In Game 2, we have no idea who's going to be going for the Detroit Tigers. We have no idea who's going to be going for the Minnesota Twins in either of these games at this point. So this is something that is completely off the board, and it is going to be very interesting to see what we get out of the Minnesota Twins, because we were talking about it with Sharky Water Nation. This is a Twins offense that has been very solid for the team, but with that said, they have been giving up a whole bunch of runs. You were just expecting so much more out of this bullpen. Alex Colome has been a giant waste of money. He's got right around a 5-ish ERA. Ty Duffy out of the bullpen has been okay. Derek Law is able to give you a little bit of something, but if you wind up getting a guy like a Bailey Ober give you a start, he just has not been good for the team. But now, I was seeing somewhere that Kenta Maeda might be making a start for the Minnesota Twins, and that's a situation in which I might be looking at the Twins, because with Maeda, he has given up 3 runs or fewer in 6 out of his last 7 starts. He has been relatively solid with that regard. Ansel Robles, Taylor Rogers are able to give you a couple good innings as well. And I take a look at the Detroit Tigers, and the bullpen has not been great this year. No fans or buts about it, but you've got a couple bright spots. Kyle Funkhauser, he's got an ERA that is a sub-2.5. Gregory Soto wound up giving up a home run in the All-Star game, but he was good enough to be an All-Star. Now Joe Jimenez has right around an 8 ERA. He has been a hot mess for the team. Daniel Norris is a guy that I have no faith in, but Tyler Alexander has been able to give the team a tad bit of something as well. And then you take a look at Jonathan Scope. When it comes to the bat, he is hitting right around a 275. He was able to pump out 52 RBI in the first half of the season. And you take a look at what he was able to do in the month of June. He hit for a 340, and he wound up having 10 homers in that month. So he has really been able to come on strong. And you take a look at some of these other guys as well. Robbie Grossman is a guy with right around a 350 on base along Jeimer Candelario. Miguel Cabrera was sitting in the pocket of about a 300 in the month of June. Akil Baddoo has a 350 on base. So you got some guys that are able to get on base. And for the Minnesota Twins, the offense is there with this team. They're getting Max Kepler off the injured list. He was able to give the team a couple homers late before the All-Star break. Ore Polanco is hitting at 250 for this bunch. He's been able to pound at 12 home runs. Nelson Cruz has 18 homers. He's back to his Nelson Cruz ways. He wound up having a good month of June. Miguel Sano, he might actually break the 200 line above the Mendoza line when it's all said and done. He's been picking it up a little bit. Trevor Larnach, Alex Kurloff, pair of guys are in between a 255 and a 265 have been solid for this team as well. So I do anticipate some high totals, especially with Jose Urena getting a start here for the Detroit Tigers. You just take a look at him, and it has been terrible. He has given up at least 4 runs in each out of his last 5 starts. He has not went a full 5 innings. That is all that needs to be said right there. He has given up 37 walks in 77 innings, 12 homers. He is only getting 50 strikeouts in that time. This guy is a fade. So, and whoever winds up going against Jose Urena, probably going to be a bet on the Minnesota Twins. Probably looking at a total north of 7 with a pair of bullpen games between the Twins and the Tigers. Probably going to be setting a north of 7 total there. And who I wind up saying as a favorite is going to be anyone's guess. Check back in the morning on my Twitter feed at JarenScorty1. Wish I could give you a little bit more, but this one is certainly an interesting situation. We've got an interesting situation here. 919, 920 on the betting board. Right now listed on the betting board is the New York Yankees at home going up against the Boston Red Sox, with Martin Perez going for the Red Sox and Jordan Montgomery going for the Yankees. For one, we have no idea at this point because I'm recording this Thursday evening if we're even going to be getting this game. Hopefully we do. Hopefully everything winds up going well with COVID protocol and everything like that. But if it does wind up being this matchup, we don't know who's going to be pitching because we were supposed to get yesterday one Eduardo Rodriguez going up against Domingo Germán. So do you wind up seeing a little bit of a switcheroo there? As I saw, according to the New York Post, you wound up having Aaron Judge in COVID-19 protocol, so that's your biggest bet with the New York Yankees. You've got Nestor Cortez along with a couple bullpen pieces that are currently in COVID protocol for the Yankees. So do they wind up bringing in a couple guys to be able to pitch out the bullpen? Because with Jordan Montgomery, he's actually been relatively solid at home. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to go north of 6 innings, but he's able to give you a good 6 innings when he's out there at Yankee Stadium. Overall, in his 8 starts, he's been averaging at home right around 5.5 to 6-ish innings, giving up 4 home runs in 45 and 2/3 innings. Opponents starting at 224 off of him, 296 ERA. So at home, he's been solid. And for Martin Perez, he's done his best work on the road so far this year. You take a look at him when he's been at Fenway, he has been terrible. 5.80 ERA, 3-4 record across 11 starts, giving up 9 homers in 45 innings. On the road, he's given up 2 homers in 39 and 2/3 innings with a 2.04 ERA. So that's something that you got to take a look at, and opponents are 90 points worse off of him on the road than they are when he's at Fenway. So that is big. And with the Boston Red Sox, I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression when it comes to this bullpen, because I just don't think that guys like Curtis Sawamura, Darwinzon Hernandez are going to be able to keep up all that they've been able to do. But Garrett Woodlock has been very good for this team as well. And with the Boston Red Sox, no question about it, you've got a very good lineup. Rafael Devers north of 20 homers going into the All-Star break, 22 to be exact. JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, both with 15 plus homers. Both of these guys north of a 370 on base. Alex Verdugo sitting at 280. Hunter Renfroe, Christian Vasquez, along with quite a few others, are hitting right around a 255 to a 265. Christian Arroyo throwing him in there as well, along with Kevin Plawecki, who's hitting at 250. And then with the Yankees, if you're having to replace Aaron Judge, it's a little bit tough because some of the top guys have been able to do a very solid job. You've got Judge along Gio Urshela, Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, lying between a 270 and a 282. Miguel Andujar, who's been a little bit banged up this year, he's been able to give the team a 255 batting average when he's been out there. Luke Voigt coming out the injured list is nice. Ian Gleyber Torres, I do think, are going to be able to pick it up, but then you've got a bunch of guys like Ruben Odor, Gary Sanchez. You're able to throw in there Tim LeCastro, Kyle Higashioka, all guys that are aiming below a 220 for this team. Congrats to Clint Frazier on getting engaged. Not such a big congrats to a .186 batting average for him so far this year. Mike Ford is a guy that you might need to look to for at bats, so it's just a little bit tough for the New York Yankees. If it does wind up being Perez versus Montgomery, and we wind up having Aaron Judge out of the game like I am sort of expecting, I'm going to be setting the Boston Red Sox as a relatively sizable favorite. Right now, as I have it with this matchup, I'd be setting the Red Sox as a minus 138 favorite, total of 10.1, so 10 or lower. Going to be taking a look at the over 10.5 or higher. Going to be taking a look at the under, but check back in the morning my Twitter feed at JonesCordy1 because once again, lots of question marks here. 921, 922 on the betting board. The Toronto, aka Buffalo Blue Jays, are going to be playing host to the Texas Rangers out there in the great city of Buffalo, as Robbie Ray is going to be going for the Jays. Meanwhile, you've got Jordan Lyles, who's going to be on the bump for the Texas Rangers. Hey, a game that we've got numbers on, as you've got a total of 10. Overs anywhere between even money and minus 110. The unders anywhere between minus 110 and minus 120. If you're taking a look at the Blue Jays, anywhere between minus 220 and minus 225. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the plus price with the Texas Rangers, that is anywhere between plus 197 and plus 205. And I'm going to be taking a look at the Blue Jays in this spot. If you're looking at a run line price with them, you're finding that in the neighborhood between a minus 120 and a minus 130. That's where I'm going to be settling on this. I want to make them a minus 133 personally, and on the money line, set them more around a minus 233. Now, with Robbie Ray, the fear is that he's going to give up multiple run homers because he has given up 20 home runs in 102 thirds innings, but he has just a 3.13 ERA to show for it. His strikeouts per 9 is in the neighborhood of about 11.5. He has actually done a good job, and he's cut down on the walks, right around 2.2 walks per 9 innings, so he's been solid there. Meanwhile, Jordan Lyles, this guy is just giving up a whole lot of contact. Now, he's been able to rein it in recently, and I give him credit. He has given up 7 hits or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts, going at least 6 innings in all but one of them as well, which that doesn't sound like much of an improvement, but for Jordan Lyles, he was given up prior to this run more than 11 hits per 9 innings, so it actually is. Overall, opponents are hitting at 287 off of him, and the 17 homers and 96 in a third innings, that's not going to fly out here in Buffalo because you're going up against a Blue Jays lineup that is absolutely terrific. You have Vlad Guerrero Jr., wound up being the MVP of the All-Star game, 28 homers, 73 RBI entering into the break, hitting at 332, and then you've got Bo Bichette along with Marcus Semien, a combined 38 homers at the top, a pair of guys with a 345 on base. Randall Grichuk has been able to give the team 16 homers. Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez, both between 10 and 11 homers. Gurriel's hitting about a 260. You've got Teoscar Hernandez hitting in that pocket of about a 300. Santiago Espinal has been hitting well above a 300 as well. Then you take a look at the flip side for the Texas Rangers. Joey Gallo wound up having, I believe it was 11 homers in the last 2 weeks entering into the All-Star game. Did not wind up emerging when it came to the home run derby, but he has been able to do a solid job. Adolis Garcia has been able to give you 22 homers so far this year, but right around 6 homers in the last 50 days, so he's been struggling a little bit with that regard. Isaiah Kadir-Falefa has been able to give the team a 260 batting average along Nate Lowe, but you've got a lot of guys on this team that are hitting right around about a 220 to a 230. You've got David Dahl, Jose Trevino, Jonah Heim, all in that pocket. Charlie Culverson has been able to raise his average to more like a 245. Brock Holt has been up and down for the team as well, but take a look at this spot. I think that Jordan Lyles, his pitching style is not going to bode well here out in Buffalo, so I'm going to be taking a look at the run line of the Blue Jays. Set this all at 10.2 as well, so seeing the 10s out there because Robbie Ray is prone to giving up homers as well. I'm going to be taking the over along with the run line of the Jays. 923, 924 is a part of that Twins versus Tigers double dip that I did a little bit earlier, so we move on. 925, 926 on the betting board. The Baltimore Orioles hit the road to face off against the Kansas City Royals. To be determined is going to be going for the Royals. Keegan Aiken is going to be on the bump for the Orioles, so this is a game which we currently have no numbers on. going to really depend on the Royals starter as to how big of a favorite I'm going to be making them, because Keegan Aiken is absolutely awful. 0-4 record, 7.54 ERA. A gentleman that is giving up 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, 3.4 walks per 9 innings. You take a look at it, he's given up at least 4 runs in each out of his last 5 starts, going 4 1/3 innings or fewer in each out of his last 4. That is not what you want to see. And you've got a Kansas City Royals team that they're not necessarily the best at being able to pump out homers or in the bottom half of the league with that regard, but you do have Salvador Perez, who's been able to give you 21 homers. He's hitting at 275. Carlos Santana, 370 on base. He's been able to pump out 15 homers. You've got Andrew Benintendi back in the fold. He's making up for lost time, double-digit amount of homers for him. He's hitting at 275 with Merrifield is hitting more around a 270. Got a couple guys like Hunter Dozier, Ore Soler. These guys have not been able to come through, but Ansel Roberto is hitting at 265 for this team. Then you take a look at the Baltimore Orioles. If there is a redeeming quality with this team, it's the fact that you do actually have quite a few guys that have been able to go yard for this team. Trey Boom Boom Mancini, who is a part of the home run derby, Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle. All between 14 and 16 homers, with Mountcastle and Mancini both hitting at 255. Cedric Mullins hitting more around a 314 with a 380 on base. Austin Hayes has been able to 250 for this team. Freddie Galvis as well, but Freddie Galvis, you got to figure, is going to be on the injured list for the time being. But then you've got a lot of guys that they are not coming through for this team. DJ Stewart, Austin Wins, Rio Ruiz, Pat Valleca, along with Chance Cisco, Stevie Wilkerson as well, all hitting a 205 or lower for this team. Now you take a look at the Kansas City Royals. This is a team that they rank in the bottom 6 when it comes to bullpen ERA. They have not been good with that regard. Actually got off to a good start, and then they wound up waning. Kyle Zimmer has been able to give you a couple good innings. Jake Brent, Scott Barlow as well. But when it comes to a starter, if you wind up getting someone like a Brad Keller, if it winds up being someone like a Chris with a K Bubich, these guys have not necessarily been too terrific. Meanwhile, if you're able to get someone a little bit more trustworthy, if you're able to get out there the Duff Man to give you like 4 or 5 innings, we'd be looking at the Royals a little bit more. I'm going to be probably saying the Royals as a favorite, and I'd be stunned if I've got a total that is south of 10 in this spot, so that's where I'm leaning on this. Check back in the morning my Twitter feed at Aaron41. Makes it a little bit tough when you don't know a set starter, but probably going to be looking at the Royals. I'm probably going to be looking at an over. Question is, what specifically are we going to be getting? 927, 928 on the betting board. Another game without numbers, as you've got the Houston Astros hitting the road to face off against the Chicago White Sox. Dylan Cease and DeCease is going to be going for the Sox. Lance McCullers Jr. is going to be going for the Houston Astros. Currently another game without numbers, but at the very least, we know the starting pitchers, so I wound up making this a White Sox minus 106 favorite, and with the total, I set it at 9.7. With the Houston Astros, they are dealing with a couple ailments right now, especially Alex Bregman, who's been out of the fold for quite a while for this team, but you take a look at this Astros team, and you've got a whole bunch of guys that are doing a tremendous job of being able to reach base. Jose Altuve winds up ending the first half with a bang, being able to get that walk-off homer against the Yankees, and you take a look at it. Michael Brantley, Yuli Gurriel, Yordan Alvarez, along with Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, when he's out there, he's been injured a little bit. I know he's also been in COVID protocol, but all these guys, aside from Michael Brantley, have a double-digit amount of homers. All these guys have at least a 278 batting average, and all these guys north of a 350 on base. That is absolutely incredible. And then you throw in there Kyle Tucker, who's got a 270 batting average. He's been able to give the team 15 homers. Chas McCormick has been able to chip in their 10 home runs. Now with the Astros, their bullpen is not quite necessarily where it is with the White Sox, but towards the back half of the first half, they had a top 10 bullpen in the league, so they've been able to do a little bit better. Christian Javier has been used as pretty much a relief specialist. Ryan Stanek, Blake Taylor, they've been able to give you some solid innings. Ryan Presley is a guy that I like. Now, when you take a look at the White Sox, you've been able to get some very good bullpen pitching from this team. Garrett Crochet wound up being a little bit lost in June, but it seems like he's been able to refine it. Ryan Burr has an ERA that is right around a 1. Liam Hendricks, he likes to swear when he pitches, but he's very good at being able to do so. Michael Kopech, he is now off the injured list. He, Jose Ruiz are very solid pieces as well. And for Dylan Cease, 4.11 ERA. He's given up right around 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. Last year he had a relatively respectable year, but he was very lucky in doing so. This year, the fielding independent and his ERA line up much more now. The walks are a little bit of an issue. He's given up right around 3.9 walks per 9 innings, but at home, .181 ERA. He's given up just 5 home runs in 44 and 2/3 innings. Opponents are getting a .90 off of him when he's at home. Now with the White Sox as well, you've got to be cautioned by the injuries because you've got a whole lot of them, but Yoel Moncada has right around a 400 on base. He has been able to do a good job for this team. You do need a couple guys to be able to pick it up because with the White Sox, you do have a couple slugs in this lineup. The the catcher spot in general, you just don't know what's going to be happening with Yasmani Grandal currently being out of the fold, but you've got Jose Abreu, who's been able to give you north of 60 RBI, right around a 334 on base. Tim Anderson is hitting above a 300. Adam Engel hitting a 285 for this team. Very nice when you've got him hitting like that. Andrew Vaughn has been able to hit about a 250. He's been able to give you some home runs. And Gavin Sheets hitting only about a 225, but he's actually been a nice little find for the team as well. So as it's right now, 9.5 or lower, going to be taking a look at the over. 10 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under. And wound up saying the White Sox is a 106 favorite because with Lance McCullers Jr. throughout his career, he's got an ERA that is a 0.5 lower when he's at home than he is on the road. Now, on the road this year, he's actually been very solid. And you take a look at Lance McCullers, he has given up approximately 2 runs in each out of his last 5 starts. And overall this year on the road has a 2.94 ERA and a 4.0 record. But I do think that that's going to dry up a little bit. I do think that the White Sox do have a little bit of an advantage out there in the bullpen. 9:29, 9:30 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners hit the road to face off against the LA Angels. Andrew Heaney is going to be going for the Halos. Chris Flexen is on the bump for the Seattle Mariners, and hey, we've actually got numbers on this one. With the Angels, you're going to be finding them as favorites anywhere between minus 159 and minus 162. Meanwhile, with the Mariners, anywhere between a plus 148 and a plus 150. 9 to 8.5 is your total. On the 8.5, over is minus 120, and the under is even. On the 9, the under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between even and minus 105, and this is the spot in which I'm going to be taking a look at the Seattle Mariners with a plus price. I was willing to take them as long as I was able to get pretty much about a north of a plus 135. With Chris Flexen, I do recognize that the splits very much yield to him being significantly better at home than he is on the road. At home, .76 ERA. In 10 starts, he's allowed 3 home runs in 61 and a third innings. On the road, he's allowed 5 homers in 31 innings. And opponents are hitting a 352 off of him. On the road, at a 218 off of him. At home, road ERA for him right around a 7. But you take a look at Andrew Heaney as well. It's not like this guy has been anything special. This is a gentleman that has given up at least 3 runs in each out of his last 4 starts. A man that is currently having a 5.38 ERA. At home, he's actually got a little bit of a higher ERA than he does on the road. Opponents are hitting a 265 off of him. In LA, and he's backed up by a bullpen with Mike Myers, who's not necessarily too good. Jose Quintana is a guy that they're trying on the bullpen. He has been absolutely terrible. Andrew Wantz is someone that they're hoping that can get the bullpen in line. And for the Seattle Mariners, you've actually been able to have Kendall Graveman be terrific out of the bullpen. Keenan Middleton has been able to give you some good innings. Rafael Montero has been a hot mess, but Paul Sewald giving you some good innings as well. And then when you take a look at the Seattle Mariners, the batting average is the worst out there in the American League, but you do have Mitch Haniger hitting 20 home runs for this team. He's been able to right around a 255 in the leadoff spot. JP Crawford has been able to hit 280, and Ty France 344 on base, 260 batting average. Now, you do need some of these slugs to really be able to pick it up because you've got so many guys like Tom Murphy, Shed Long, throwing there Dylan Moore, Jack Mayfield, Taylor Trammell, all these guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. And for the LA Angels, you've got Showtime, Shohei Ohtani. He's been able to hit 33 homers. He has been absolutely amazing for this team, but don't sleep on Jared Walsh, who wanted making that nice sliding catch in the All-Star game. He has been able to give this team right around a 280 batting average, north of 20 homers in the first half of the season. David Fletcher in the month of June was able to hit for this bunch right around a 360. Phil Gosselin has north of a 300 batting average. Now, guys like Taylor Ward, Kurt Suzuki, Juan Lagares hitting between a 220 and a 230. They need to pick it up a little bit, but by and large, the Angels have been able to do a good job of being able to maintain without Mike Trout. I think that this is a little bit too lofty. I have no faith in that Angels bullpen. I have no faith in Andrew Heaney. Wound up saying this total well north of 9, so I'm going to be taking it over. I'd be probably willing to take a 9.5 over at this point. And with this spot, setting the Seattle Mariners right around a plus 135 underdog, going to take the plus 150 that I see presented to me. 931, 932 on the betting board. The Cleveland Indians hit the road to face off against the Oakland A's. Chris Bassett has the hook, line, and sinker for the A's. Meanwhile, Eli Morgan is going to be on the bump for the Cleveland Indians. 8.5 is your total, over and under anywhere between minus 105, minus 115. If you're looking at the A's, you're going to be finding them anywhere between minus 198 and minus 205. Meanwhile, your plus price here with the Indians anywhere between plus 180 and plus 185. And this is a situation in which I want to say the Oakland A's is right around a $2 favorite. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 123 on the run line. Right now, as I'm seeing it, it's right around a minus 105 to minus 110 on the run line of the Oakland A's. So I'm going to be in there. Chris Bassett did wind up pitching a little bit in the All-Star game, but got to figure that he's going to be good to go in this one. When it comes to Mr. Bassett, he was very good in the first half of the season, giving up right around 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 in the pocket of about 2.5. The team has done very well in its starts. He is 10-2 overall with his record, 2.55 ERA at home. Opponents are hitting a $1.97 off of him in Oakland. And for Eli Morgan, this guy's just getting tattooed in general. 8 home runs given up in 21 1/3 innings. He's got a 1-3 record. I can't remember the last pitcher I've seen that's given up double the amount of homers that he has walks, but that has been done by Eli Morgan. And he's backed up by a bullpen that is relatively solid. Emmanuel Clays along James Karinchak. These guys are relatively solid, but they've had to do some mixing and matching as well. Nick Sandlin has been solid out there in the bullpen. DJ Johnson, I think, is a little bit of a question mark. Justin Garza is someone that they've had to look to him for the Oakland A's. JB Wendelken is off the injured list, so that is going to be helping them out, even though you wound up looking a little bit rough towards the back half of the first half of the season. Sergio Romo actually was able to pick it up in his last couple appearances. Diolias Guerrera along Jake Diekman. These guys are able to give you some good innings. And for the Oakland A's, you got Matt Olson, who wound up playing in the All-Star game. He has been terrific for this team. 23 homers, hitting a 280. He's been able to do a good job of being able to get on base as well. And then you've got a couple guys that are hitting, I would say, between a 220-ish and a 240-ish, but they've been able to pick it up. Ramon Laureano is just above that with a 242, but Tony Kemp, Mitch Moreland, Elvis Andrus, Matt Chapman, Sean Murphy, all in that neighborhood. But for Chapman, 320 on base. He wound up having a 15-game hit streak in the month of June. Tony Kemp has a 370 on base. Ramon Laureano has been able to pound out 13 homers, so he's been able to do his part as well. Mark Canha being on the injured list has hurt this team at the leadoff spot, but when you take a look at the Cleveland Indians, you don't know what you're going to be able to get out of this team offensively, though I will say it is good that Franmil Reyes is off the injured list. He has done a tremendous job for the team, hitting at 272. He is averaging about a home run every 12 or so at bats. Jose Ramirez wound up playing in the All-Star game. He's hitting at 260 with 9 home runs, and you've got quite a few guys: Amid Rosario, Eddie Rosario, Josh Naylor, in between a 250 and a 260. Naylor has been a little bit banged up, but has been able to give you something whenever he's been out there. You need some of these guys like a Bobby Bradley and Ernie Clement, guys like this that are hitting right around a 220 or lower to pick it up a little bit. But the Indians should be fine offensively. It's just the fact that they've got no starting pitching whatsoever. I think that Bassett is going to be able to do a very good job against this offense. I did wind up saying this total at 8.7 because the Oakland A's have actually been better pitching on the road than they have at home this year, which I find to be a little bit strange. But I'm going to be taking this total over, and I'm going to be taking the A's on the run line. I wrap things up with 933, 934 on the betting board. You got the Tampa Bay Rays on the road facing off against the Atlanta Braves. Charlie Morton is going to be going for the Bravos. Michael Waka, or I'm going to use my dying Pac-Man voice here. Waka, 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 waka. He's going to be going for the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays are finding themselves as underdogs here, anywhere between plus 115 and plus 120. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Bravos, anywhere between minus 125 and minus 130. 9 to 8.5 is your total. On the 8.5, over is minus 125. The under is plus 105. On the 9, under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. And the over is anywhere between even and minus 105. I wound up saying the Rays as a very, very slight underdog of plus 102. I have this as more of a pick'em game, so I'm going to be taking a look at the Rays in the spot. And with Michael Waka, not necessarily a guy that you want to be pushing all of your chips in the middle with, but he hasn't been terrible recently. He has given up 10 home runs overall in 57 and a third innings, but you take a look at it, in 3 out of his last 5 appearances, he's given up 1 run or fewer. Now, he's given up a pair of 5 spots in the middle as well, so you don't know if you're going to get good Michael Waka or you're going to get bad Michael Waka, but you can say the same thing about Charlie Morton as well. In Charlie Morton's last 5 appearances, he has given up 1 run or fewer in 3 of them, and he's given up 3+ in the other 2, so it has been very strange to take a look at him. And for Charlie Morton, he's done some of his worst work at home so far this year. In the city of Atlanta, he's got a 5-1 record across 11 starts, but 4.21 ERA at home compared to a 2.83 on the road. Giving up 7 home runs in 57 and 2/3 innings when he's been at home. On the road, 2 home runs given up in 41 and a third innings, and opponents are hitting 60 points higher off of him when he's at home. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, this is not a team that is afraid to swing and miss, but you do have a lot of guys that they are able to supply the boom, as you've got Brandon Lau along Mike Zunino, who have combined for 40 home runs so far this year. Austin Meadows has been able to give you 16 home runs. Randy Arozarena still sitting on 10, but he's got right around a 333 on base. And what you notice with a lot of these guys on the Tampa Bay Rays is that they've got on base percentages that are like 100 points higher than their batting average. Take a look at Yandy Diaz, 250 batting average, 375 on base. Mark Brasso, $182 batting average, 265 on base. Brett Phillips, 200 batting average, 310 on base. So you've got a lot of that going on for this team and for the Atlanta Braves. They now have to adjust to life without Ronald Acuna Jr. That is not going to be easy. Now, I will say, you do have a lot of guys on this team that have been able to do a good job of being able to put bat to ball, because even though Acuna was was leading the way with 24 home runs. You've got at the top of this fold Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Ozzie Albies, and Austin Riley. All in between 14 and 19 homers, really, other than Swanson. All these guys are in between a 262 and a 275, and even for Swanson, north of a 300 on base, you need to get a little bit of something out of the catcher spot. Towards the All-Star break, they were kicking the tires on Jonathan Lucroy. He was able to give the team a little bit of something. Guillermo Reddy has been able to get on base, 345 on base. Ahir Adrianza, when he's been out there, he's been able to give you a couple good at-bats. I think that Abraham Almonte, his 372 on base, is going to be coming up clutch as well. But with the Braves, this is a team in which they just don't have the bullpen to be able to match up with the Tampa Bay Rays. You've got JP Fireeisen doing a great job for the team, Andrew Kittredge, right around a 1.5 ERA, Diego Castillo, Pete Fairbanks. We all know what you're able to get out of these guys. And for the Braves, last year, the bullpen was solid. Luke Jackson has been able to have a very good year for this team, sub-2 ERA. But AJ Minter, even though he had a little bit of a better run of it in late June, early July, he has been tough. Tyler Madzik has been a little bit up and down this year. Edgar Santana has right around a 3.75 ERA, which is actually down compared to where it was earlier in the year, so he's been able to do a little bit better. But Shane Green, coming off the injured list, has not been good for the team. This is a spot in which I'm going to be taking the plus price with the Tampa Bay Rays, as I felt like this should have been a little bit closer to a pick'em. Also wound up saying this still at 9.1, so we're going to be going over, and I'm going to be going with the Rays, and that'll wrap things up for the Baseball Betting Podcast on this Friday. A big thanks to Sharky Water Nation for joining me in the last segment. If you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, you're able to subscribe to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, one of two ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at JRScorty1. Keep in mind the letters EM, they mean does not matter. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to send your questions, comments, segment ideas, what have you into there. I'll be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means coming at you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.